Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel, talking about another movie that was directed by Jared Hess, because yesterday I recorded the Napoleon Dynamite review, and I didn't even know that one and Nacho Libre had the same director, so I wanted to watch like more movies by him, and then I also have Nacho Libre and DVDs. It's like another movie that I'd grown up with. That I think I'd watched more times than Napoleon Dynamite, if I'm honest, but for some reason I'd forgotten more of it compared to the other movie. This was another one I rewatched with my dad that we both find really funny and stuff. Like, it's interesting comparing it with Napoleon Dynamite. Like, Napoleon Dynamite, I think I find a bit funnier because it's one of those movies where everyone is kind of just extremely awkward, and this one, it's just really the main character and like a couple other characters, I guess, but mostly just the main character, where it's like an underdog story. And this one, it's like Napoleon Dynamite is like a slice of life sort of movie. That's the best way I could describe it. And this one more is kind of like the hero's journey and stuff, and more of like a structural like plot and everything. So it's about, oh yeah, and this is also one of the first movies, because this came out in like 2006, so I was, still pretty little. I think this was the first movie I'd ever seen Jack Black in. And there was like other stuff around this time that was like also, coming out. It's like this movie and the Kung Fu Pandas for me was like my introduction to Jack Black, so it feels kind of nostalgic, but then also feels kind of weird seeing him here like so young and everything. Like most movies I'm used to him from is from like the early 2000s, and so there's another one of his movies I also wanted to rewatch called Be Kind Rewind, but I think actually after this I want to move on, because my dad and I just have like a whole stack of movies on the table at this point that we're trying to go through. Some of the Wes Anderson movies, this like I mentioned, Napoleon Dynamite, it's kind of weirdly similar to the Wes Anderson movies a little bit. I think it's just like the cinematography, honestly, the point where I went on Letterboxd after I was done watching this movie, where someone, I think the top comment was something like, Wes Anderson wishes he could make a movie like this, or something like that. So Jack Black, he plays this orphan priest. I think he's either a priest or a monk. I'm not really sure, because he wears those like brown robes the whole movie. He lives in this like monastery. He plays this character named Ignacio, but he goes by Nacho for short. Nacho Libre is also like his luchador name. But yeah, ever since he's like a little kid, he dreamed of being a luchador, designing his own like costume and everything, and just never really fitting in at the church that he lives in. I don't know if it would be called like a church or a monastery. I'm not actually sure the difference. I assumed it was a monastery because they have all these monks living there. Anyway, there's all these like orphan kids that are also there, and he like looks after them. He's basically like their cook and also on dead guy duty, as he calls it. And there's this nun that ends up moving in. Let me pull up the Wikipedia page. I want to make sure I get the names right for once. Oh, okay, the nun, I was trying to remember what her name is. It's Sister Encarnacion. She's this nun that Nacho has feelings for, but because one of them's a nun and one of them's a missionary. Yeah, missionary would be the right word. I was trying to think, is it priest, is it nun, or is it monk? Yeah, they have feelings for each other, or he at least has feelings for her. I feel like it's kind of implied she does for him as well. But because they took their vows, they can't like be together romantically or anything. Apparently this movie, I'm looking on the Wikipedia page as I'm kind of going through, it was based on an actual priest who was a luchador, Friar Tormenta. I've never heard of him. Interesting. Oh yeah, because this movie takes place in Mexico. It was also filmed there. It was filmed in Oaxaca. I think that's pretty cool, honestly. Sorry, I don't have notes for this. I just finished watching the movie too. It kind of helps me if I kind of glance at the Wikipedia like plot overview so I can remember sort of like where the story goes and stuff. Because when I watch movies with my parents, I don't take notes on my phone or anything, because I'm just sitting there and I'm watching it. So I have to like try to remember everything myself. But yeah, wrestling is a sin. It's like a vanity thing. I didn't know that, but they explained it in the movie. But they do explain it in a way where like, oh, if you're doing wrestling and it's not as like a vanity thing, like Nacho ends up doing it for the orphans by the end, and then it's like considered okay, like he's trying to get them a better life. And oh, okay, sorry, I keep like glancing in here. I did not know that Danny Elfman did the music for this movie. Interesting, I wouldn't have guessed that. Oh yeah, and then Nacho, he has like a fighting partner, is this thief that's named Steven. Steven's also a cool character, where him and Nacho are kind of like opposites. Like one of them's very religious, one of them I guess is like an atheist, and Steven as a fighter, he goes by the name Skeleton because he's like, I mean, he's very skinny, but also because he's very like kind of small and fast, and together they end up as wrestlers. It starts out as like a way to earn money, and then Nacho's doing it to get money for the orphans. He ends up getting them like better food and stuff. What I was surprised didn't happen with this movie, because he has to hide from everyone at the monastery that he's a wrestler, that there wasn't some kind of scene where the characters were like, hey, where are you, how are you suddenly getting money to be able to pay for all this stuff? Where he's not only getting like fresh ingredients to make like salads and stuff for the orphans, but also for the other members of the monastery. He even gets gets himself a cool pair of shoes at one point as well, and like better clothes. Steven also ends up getting some clothes because he originally doesn't really like wear much, where they're suddenly, you know, getting all this money. But there's never a scene like that. There is one of those like I don't even know in this movie if I can call it lie revealed, because he does lie a bit actually about it, but it's not as dramatic as it is in other movies, where he does get exposed in his costume and has to tell everyone like, hey, I'm Nacho Libre, and like no one knows who he is. They're just like, who are you? And he's like, you might have seen me on the TV. But yeah, no one ever asks him about where he gets the money for this stuff. And it's kind of interesting because he's like earning a good amount of money, and he's like buying the kids food, and then suddenly he stops doing that and gets so into the wrestling thing that they end up actually running out of food. And it doesn't turn out to be like as much as a problem as like you think it would be. Someone else just ends up making them breakfast, and it ends up fine. Like he is sort of confronted about it by the nun character of like, hey, where have you been and stuff. It isn't till like later he ends up getting revealed. And then the main person they're trying to fight is this like champion luchador named Ramses. It was kind of funny. My dad was like trying to remember what his name is at the start of the movie, and he was like, it's something Egyptian, something of like Pharaoh or whatever, but no, it's Ramses as in like King Ramses and stuff. But he's like the top guy, you know, because he's the champion. He also turns out to be kind of a jerk too. Like there's one part where Nacho's trying to ask him for a signature to get for the kids, and you know, I feel like people would mostly be like nice about that if it's for like little kids or something, and then I think he ends up like shoving Nacho or whatever. There's also like a whole thing with corn chips as well, where people give out like a bag of chips for the orphans, and that's originally how Nacho ends up meeting Steven, of him trying to steal it. And there's a part with that's kind of funny where Nacho tries to find him again, and he ends up having like just a handful of chips, not even from like a bag or anything. I guess he just carried it in his hand and scatters it on the ground as if you're like trying to summon a bird or something. That was kind of funny to me. There's a part, because they end up fighting and they mostly lose a lot of the time, and then they end up going to before that, Oh, they end up going to get eagle eggs. I forgot about that. That was cool. There's this guy in a boat who wears these really cool clothes. I don't know what he's like dressed as or anything though. And he tells them like, "Hey, you can like climb this mountain, and if you get I think Steven's the one that originally tells Nacho like, if you climb this mountain, you'll be able to get these eagle eggs that give you like magical powers, and they make you like the strongest fighter in the world." They turn out not to actually do anything, but the scene is kind of funny where Nacho has to like climb up this mountain. He doesn't have any like climbing gear or anything, and sorry, I'm a little distracted right now. I was I'm looking at my hands as I'm talking, and I'm like, why the hell is my nail purple? It's paint though. It's fine. He ends up climbing this mountain, and I didn't really like looking at the scene of him cracking open the eagle egg and drinking the yolk out of it, because the yolk ends up all over him. So I ended up there's like two parts in this movie where I actually covered my eyes with my hands, not even as if it was like anything scary or whatever. It's that scene with the eggs, because I didn't really like the look out of it. And okay, this is gonna sound kind of silly. You know when you're like little and there's like scenes of something that scare you for like whatever reason, and you just avoid the movie forever or like years later? There's one of those in this for me, and it's not even scary. I think it was like the visual of it creeped me out, and like the scene right afterwards is also a little bit scary. But yeah, I actually avoided watching this movie for a while. I remember it was a good movie and like a nostalgic movie and stuff, and I was like, I don't want to see that. It was because I didn't want to see that scene again, and then I did cover my eyes at that part just so I couldn't see it, and then it was fine. It's not even anything that scary, but I'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, he ends up drinking the eagle egg, and nothing happens with that, and then they try to sneak into a party, and that's a pretty cool scene. It's like this party that Ramses has, and Nacho ends up, it's a pretty funny scene where Nacho ends up getting in the party by having to pretend to be part of a mariachi band, and then they ask him like, you have to sing for Ramses or whatever, and Jack Black does get to sing like 3 songs in this movie. I completely forgot about that. I want to talk about a specific one because it's really funny. I like cracked up at it, but it's not this one. But he has to make up like a song on the spot of like praising how amazing Ramses is or whatever. Not that has to be the lyrics, but that's just what he decides to do, and it's so awkward because like Jack Black can sing, but he has to, pretend like he can't sing. It just comes off as goofy, and then Ramses ends up shoving wine on his shirt. Nacho has to wear this like really stupid looking shirt in that scene too, where it has all these ruffles and it's in the middle, but it's like way too many ruffles. It just looks kind of ugly. But yeah, he gets wine thrown on him where, they know that he's not part of the mariachi band. And then the way Steven ends up getting in is he ends up climbing over a wall, but he doesn't want to lift Nacho. He thinks he's like too heavy over the wall. Hold on. Oof, sorry. I'm okay. Sometimes that just happens where I end up like suddenly having a coughing fit or whatever. Anyway, Steven ends up getting in this party, and there's this woman there. I didn't know who she was. I asked my dad about it as we were watching. I'm like, who the heck is this woman? My dad said it was this lady who's supposed to be like Ramses' daughter or something. I'm not sure. No, her character, it is literally just listed as a woman who tries to court Steven at the Luchadors party. She's not even like plot relevant or anything. But yeah, she has this room that's in like the top floor of the building that I don't remember why Steven's there at that point. And it's this room that's covered in dolls. And the thing is, I like dolls. Like, I had dolls when I was little. I had American Girl dolls. And this is going to sound funny because a lot of people I've heard, like, some of my friends would say, like, oh, those look kind of creepy or whatever. I do find a lot of dolls creepy. I could see the American Girl dolls being kind of creepy, actually, now that I think about it. And I feel like, now that I think about it, I probably shouldn't be surprised I find a lot of dolls kind of creepy. I'm, like, very picky on it, because I literally have a doll hutch in my room that's full of these, like, some of the dolls are from, like, different countries and stuff. Like, some of them are from Japan. And they're all dolls that either my dad had got, you know, like, for me, or I think just dolls my mother had. I have no idea where some of them came from, but they've been in that hutch forever, like, for as long as I can remember, and it, like, faces my bed. Like, literally right now it's facing my chair, and these dolls are staring me in the eyes, and maybe that subconsciously made me a little weird about dolls. I don't know. Like, I had Barbies as a kid. I had American Girl dolls. I've always been kind of freaked out by baby dolls. A lot of them just kind of look kind of scary to me. I used to, like, genuinely have nightmares about it when I was a kid. I don't know. Anyway, I'm mentioning all that because there's a room that Steven ends up in, that the wall is, like, covered in all these dolls. There's even, like, close-ups of the dolls too. I think it's supposed to be kind of, like, creepy though. Like, you're supposed to feel kind of unsettled of, like, why is there so many dolls here? And they're just there. Anyway, the part that always freaked me out when I was little was Steven goes up to one of the dolls and he pokes it in the face, and its eye comes out, or, like, it's part of its face actually breaks. I guess it's just that fragile. I don't think he was putting a lot of pressure in his fingers. The face breaks, where the eye is, like, you know, it's the part with the eye and part of the skin on the face, like, is broken off. So then all that's left is, like, a black hole of where the eye was on the doll. I mean, I'm glad, like, the eye doesn't hang out at the face or anything too weird. It just gets, like, poked out. But there's something about that, and I think for me it's also the sound. There's, like, a breaking sound you hear. It's something about that visual and that sound together that just kind of freaked me out. It's like for 1 second too, and then, I mean, the camera does still stay there in that shot and everything, in that scene. So the characters are talking, and the doll with the broken face is, like, still there, and its face isn't even broken that badly or anything. It's just that one part with the eye, but there's just something about that visual that just it makes me feel, like, icky. So, like, I did cover my eyes during that part. So I don't know if I've gotten through that or not. I just didn't want to see it. And the thing is, I put my hand down and I could see the doll and its broken face or whatever, like, as the scene was still going, and I was just watching. But just for that one visual, like, I covered my eyes. I didn't want to do with it. But yeah, it's stupid though, I feel like, because that's the whole reason I refused to watch this movie. And I remembered it as a good movie and everything else I liked, but just that one scene. And, you know, then I rewatched it today, and I can't even say if I got over that or not, because I just didn't look. I'm so glad my dad didn't even ask me about that. I'm like, why are you putting your hand up or whatever? I, like, fully expected him to tease me about that. But, you know, it's just one of those things. I don't know, like, the way movies affect you when you're little. Like, for some others, it's, like, a fear thing. For me, like, I was afraid of the aliens in, what's the one with the big brains? Mars Attacks, yeah. Or I can never watch The Notebook because I walked in on a scene of it when I was younger where someone goes flying through the windshield of a car, and I didn't know it was a romantic movie or anything, but that, like, terrified me to the point where I always have my seatbelt on at all times. So there's like a lot of things like that with movies when you're little. But yeah, Nacho Libre, that doll scene is just one of them for me. It's not even really, like, scary or anything. It's just that one part of the doll getting its face broken that, like, kind of freaked me out. Anyway, if anything with that whole scene, the part that comes directly next should have been the thing that, like, scared me more. I was surprised by that. Okay, because there's this woman, like I mentioned, she's in the room and she's getting, like, real flirty with Steven or something. It's, like, kind of funny, actually, and then it kind of stops being funny. We ask her, like, how did you get here so fast? And she points at a hole. There's just like a hole in the wall because she says like secret tunnels or whatever. I don't know why there's like holes in this building just in the wall. It's not even really like a tunnel. Anyway, Nacho is trying to like, I think, leave the party or something, and Steven suddenly, like, Nacho looks over and you see Steven, and he is coming out of one of the tunnels, or trying to, and the woman is behind him in the tunnel, and she's trying to drag him in there, and he's screaming his head off. That should have been the thing of watching someone get dragged into a tunnel by a stranger against their will. Even if it's played for comedy, that should have been the scene that scared me as a child. I don't know why it didn't, and I was fine with it here. It's just more funny, if anything. And then Nacho tries to save him, and he ends up hitting him with it's like a cello or something, with the cello instead of the woman. And Nacho, I think, ends up on top of him or something, and then they're like tossed out. But that's one of the funniest scenes, just that whole like party section, really, in the movie, in my opinion. Oh, I forgot to talk about the kids. Yeah, only one of them is really important. They don't even really have that many lines. There's like a bunch of kids. Marissa Zarias, who I remember most from being on Hannah Montana when I was little. It was kind of funny. My dad remembered him too. It was like, oh, that's the kid that was like on all your Disney Channel shows, and I'm like, yeah, because like I watched a lot of those shows when I was younger. I'm a 2000s kid, so like Hannah Montana, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, like all of the ones from like that era specifically, or like Wizards of Waverly Place, I think, was probably my favorite, and my dad watched a lot of those shows with me when I was younger. So if we see like any of those actors, or like Selena Gomez as an example, who I've been watching a lot in the show lately, my dad will be like, oh, it's the person from your those shows you used to watch when you were younger. And it was only ever stuff on Disney Channel my dad would watch with me. It was either Disney Channel or specifically SpongeBob. My dad really liked SpongeBob. Anything else, or like anything on Cartoon Network, I was on my own. But that's always just kind of funny to me that he remembers. But yeah, he's in this movie. Marissa Zarias, I don't think he has like a single line though, or maybe it's just like one line. And then there's this kid named Chancho, and he's like Nacho's only supporter for most of the movie. I think because he kind of, I want to guess, maybe reminds Nacho like of himself. Like, you see Nacho as a kid in the beginning, and like the opening credits before it like transitions to like the character grew up or whatever, and then Jack Black plays him from there. But Nacho, not Nacho. Wait, what did I say this kid's name was? Sorry, I'm like going back. Yeah, Chancho. He looks a lot like Nacho when he was a kid. The names sound similar. I'm gonna keep mixing them up, I swear. Yeah, but Chancho only has a couple of lines. But the scenes that he's in, he does like a good job and stuff. Especially early on, before he really starts like talking or anything. You'll see Ignacio like practicing wrestling stuff outside or whatever, and Chancho's just there like in the background or something, just staring and watching and seeing things, and you think he's gonna like maybe squeal or whatever, but he doesn't. And then from there he ends up making his own luchador mask, and then it ends up influencing the kids too. Like, he ends up watching Nacho on the TV during his first couple matches, and then the kids are in like the courtyard of the monastery, and they start wrestling on their own until they have to get like chewed out about it. That scene's actually kind of sad, where Encarnacion ends up catching them, and then Nacho's also there, and he has to like kind of pretend to chew out the kids, I guess, of being like, you're not able to wrestle. Like, he isn't mean to them or anything. He loves those kids, but he's like, yeah, you can't wrestle. It's like a sin. And then he says how he's describing how awesome his life is, of being like, I wake up at like 5 a.m. I make you guys soup. What was the other thing? I sleep alone in my room, and it's the best. You can see the pain in his eyes, or even just in his face, actually, of just, he doesn't like his life. He wants to date that pretty nun and to wrestle and not be stuck on kitchen duty anymore, but he has to like keep doing those things because of his position and stuff. As he has a responsibility to those kids, and that's the thing. He tells Stephen, either Stephen or the nun, I think the nun, he tells her, like, they first meet each other. Oh, that scene's also kind of funny. They meet, and then he invites her over to her room to eat toast, and then they just sit there and they eat toast, and it's not even toast that has anything on it. It's on like white bread. It looks kind of crunchy and whatever. Like put something on it, please. But they have this kind of awkward conversation where he talks about his parents and stuff, and how he's an orphan, and shoot, what was I just saying? About taking his vows and other things. Shoot, the point is gone. But that scene's also kind of funny, of just watching Nacho and Ignacio, and they're just sitting across from each other in his room eating toast. There's just a lot of funny scenes, or just details of things or whatever. Like throughout the movie, I didn't really notice it, like, or paying much attention to it the first time, but in like a bunch of the scenes, especially towards the beginning, Steven always has elote for some reason, the corn with like the mayo and stuff on it. And there's this one part where him and Nacho, they almost get into a fight with these other wrestlers, but they're not in the ring, they're not wearing like their costumes or anything. They just get kind of not even like cornered by these guys. I guess so. They're like walking out of a building, and they're there, these other two wrestlers that wear these like lion masks or something usually, and they never talk or anything. They don't have lines. If anything, they make these like squealing noises a lot of the time especially when they're in the ring, that I swear sound exactly like pigs, but their costumes are like lion masks. So I don't know, but it's these two guys that end up pumping the air out of Nacho's bike, and one of them has a knife. Actually, that was one of the moments in the movie that did feel like it would be something out of a Wes Anderson movie, the way it happens. But yeah, one of them has like a knife, and they're gonna have to fight these guys. And then the camera, there's like a close-up of the knife, and then the camera shows Steven. It shows a close-up of his hand, and he's got the elote, and he throws it, and it ends up going through the guy's eye. It just goes just right in the face, I think, because of the like the stick and everything, so it's not just like the soft corn and stuff. And that moment is never shown or referenced or anything for the rest of the movie. It's just this one little bit that happens. I don't think you even ever see those characters again either. I would have probably noticed though, because one of them would have probably, it's something covering their eye or anything, but you never see them again. It's just this one bit. The characters don't talk about it or anything. The dude gets hit with the corn, and it just immediately ends, and it goes to the next scene. It just feels so random, if anything. That's one of my favorite scenes. I can't believe I almost forgot about that. That's the thing. I'll be like reading through the plot of a movie, even if I don't have notes, and I'll talk about characters, or I'll talk about things, and then I suddenly just remember scenes and stuff. Hold on a second. Let me think what else. Yeah, I talked about the party. There's like this montage where Nacho and Steven, it's like once they decide to become tag partners and do these wrestling matches for money. Oh yeah, and it's only Nacho's money that ends up going to the orphans. Steven keeps his money for himself, but he does buy himself like better clothes. He ends up getting a haircut because during their first match, he ends up getting like part of his hair ripped out. I felt pretty bad for him. Yeah, they do this montage of like training and stuff, but they don't really know what the heck they're doing with their training. It mostly just ends up with them like hurting each other. Maybe it's or like hurting themselves. Maybe it's like stamina training or something. But it's like a wacky variety of things. Like Steven ends up holding flowers and Nacho ends up throwing a beehive and the bees end up getting him. Or Nacho, he has a red cape for a lot of the movie. It's on the poster too. I wish the poster had his mask as well. I think the mask is pretty cool. I feel like it really completes the outfit. And the thing is, he doesn't even have this outfit or the cape for like his last match or anything. I think the cape was just like early on in his matches. He ends up, I think, ditching it. I can't remember anymore. I don't remember him having it at the end though. This is just the pants, the cape, the shoes. He ends up getting different shoes as well. This is like his first outfit, if anything. I feel like maybe the cape's almost symbolic in that case of like he's doing it the matches for money, but also it's like an ego thing. And then once he learns the reason why wrestling's a sin, and if you like do it for the orphans and stuff, it's really like once he gets exposed of being a wrestler, then and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna give the money to the orphans and everything, which he was already doing anyway. He was like buying them ingredients to make like better food for them. I think he just kind of ditches the cape at that point and it like stops being an ego thing. But anyway, yeah, they get attacked by bees, or Steven does, really, not Nacho. And then they get chased around by bulls because the red cape thing. And it's just sort of like a lot of like physical comedy, like but funny stuff though. Nacho's just a funny character in general. It's like Jack Black is sort of putting on this accent a bit. He does speak some stuff in Spanish, and he actually has like pretty good pronunciation, which I thought was nice. But sometimes it's like the way he says certain words is just really funny to me. Like one of my favorite lines in this movie, it's like the line, but also the way he says it just cracks me up. Steven, Nacho, he wants to impress the nun. He takes her out on a date where Steven's supposed to bring his friends to like stage a fight and let Nacho win as like a way to impress her. But then they end up being late and Nacho ends up picking a fight with these two random dudes that end up punching him in the face and stuff. And he gets like mad at Steven about it, of being like, hey, where were you? You were late. I looked like a loser. And then Steven goes to get the two of them some elote as like a way to make up for it. And then Nacho just says, oh gosh, I can't even like do an impression of it. I feel bad. He's like, get this coin out of my face. And then he ends up smacking the coin on the ground. But it's just like the way Jack Black says it. He says the line really fast and just with like attitude. And it just cracks me up every time. It's just that one bit in the movie. It's like the one time he says it. But it's so good. Wait, hold on. Sorry. There's a specific scene I wanted to talk about as well. I'm trying to remember what it was. Why can't I remember? Oh, there's a section in the movie I forgot to talk about. Maybe that'll jog my memory. I'm kind of like going back and forth throughout this actually. Nacho he ends up getting banished from the monastery because, you know, wrestling's supposed to be a sin and the people there don't believe that he's a man of God. So he ends up having to go live in the wilderness, which turns out to not even be that far away from anything. Like, it's away from the monastery, but it's like right next to a town with like a couple houses. It's kind of funny because Steven goes to find him and Nacho's like, how did you find me? After we had this whole montage of him like trying to build shelter out of sticks and having a bonfire and whatever. Steven's like, you're right next to the village, and then it cuts to the village and there's this girl who's like, hi Nacho, or yeah, hola Nacho, and she's like waving at him and he waves back at her kind of awkwardly. There's just like a lot of little moments like that are just so good in this movie. Anyway, and then Nacho decides to go back into wrestling. Steven manages to convince him, saying that, because they get into a fight originally, like an actual physical fight, where Steven's like, I hate all of the orphans in the world, and Nacho gets mad at him and they try to fight each other for a little bit, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And then at that point Steven's like, oh, I like them now, and that's it. You don't learn why he likes the orphans or anything, or what changed. I was confused if he was like living in the monastery throughout the movie as well. You see him there a couple times when he's originally fighting with Nacho, like in the matches, not when they get into their own fight. You see him like they're roommates now, and he's there at the end with Nacho and all the kids. So I don't know, I guess he's just there. But yeah, they end up going back, and then before they have their final match, Nacho's telling Steven, it's one of my favorite parts of the movie, of like, hey, I wrote this song for the nun, do you want to hear it? And Steven's like, yeah, sure, let's hear it. And okay, like, Jack Black stays in character and stuff the whole movie, and you know, sounding different and everything, because he's like playing this character and like putting on this sort of accent and stuff. And then when he sings this song, which has these like really goofy lyrics, that it also kind of sounds like Nacho is sort of making up on the spot, even though we don't know how long he's out there in the wilderness. I'm assuming not very long at all. It's treated as like one of those things where like a character goes off to live in the woods, but it's only been like a day or something. But he sings this song and he stops sounding like Nacho and just sounds like himself as Jack Black, and he sings it well and stuff, because like Jack Black can sing, so he's like allowed to sing fine here or whatever. But just the way he sings the song and just the little things that Jack Black does when he sings, of I can't even explain it. You gotta go find the song. But it just makes the scene really funny. My dad and I were cracking up so hard about that. It's one of my favorite scenes of this movie. That's the thing that makes it hard for me to talk about this. Where I can go over the plot where Nacho, I mean, even with the fights and stuff, there isn't really a lot I can say. It's one of those things where you have to like watch the fights or whatever, and like there is a storyline to this, but part of what makes the movie so great, I think, it's just the writing and the humor and stuff. The jokes are just so good. It's like just the way they're done. It's I don't know, man. But anyway, then he ends up having his final fight with Ramses, and it's like a one-on-one match, but Steven is there but to like support Nacho and stuff. And Nacho ends up losing, and they have that thing where like the main character's losing and they sees the love interest or the friend or whatever, and it like gives them the strength to win and stuff. And it's such a nice moment, actually, where Nacho is on the ground. I think Ramses has his foot on Nacho's neck or something, not enough to like kill him or whatever, but you know, to have him like pinned down, he can't get up, he's gonna probably like lose the fight or whatever. And then Encarnacion and some of the kids are there, and I like that with the orphans, because it was originally just Chancho that had his own mask, but then all of the orphans have their own like homemade masks, and they're all the same one that Nacho used to have. At this point in the movie, Nacho doesn't really wear his mask in the fight. Actually, no, he did start this fight with Ramses with his mask on, but Ramses ends up taking it off off of Nacho's face, like against his will and stuff. But all the little kids have the masks, and they're all there, and they're there to support him. And then he ends up kicking Ramsey's ass, and he ends up winning the fight. But right when okay, the main, I forgot to talk about the music. The music in this is pretty good, but like the main theme of it is this song that just has the lyrics, I am. I don't know what the song's actually called. I'm trying to find it on here. Because there is one that's called Religious Man. I don't know if that's the song. I just know the lyrics are literally just the words, I am. That's like how the song keeps starting. And, it ends up, you hear like the beginning of it, but before the words start, when Nacho's on the ground and then he sees everybody, and then when he gets up and he's like gonna win and stuff, then you hear the lyrics and the I am, and it's just such a nice moment. But that song is just so good, honestly. But yeah, it's a cool moment, and he wins the fight, and then Nacho ends up buying a bus for the kids and takes them on like field trips and stuff, and you get to see one of those field trips at the end, and Steven is there too for some reason. But it's really cool, honestly. That's pretty much the whole thing. Sorry, I'm having a hard time focusing because I scrolled down to the bottom. Apparently there's a video game of this movie, and I just find that funny because it's released on the Nintendo DS. I don't know why I always find that funny of like kids, or not that this is a kids movie, but like movies that from like the early 2000s that get like a video game adaptation. It's just for some reason the ones where it's like animated kids movies and like the Nintendo DS. I think because of the memes of it is what I'm thinking of, where it's like someone voicing a character and being like bubba bubba game for the Nintendo DS or for the Nintendo Wii, and those were always funny to me, so I think that's why. Apparently it's a cartoon style wrestling game. Guess it's good I'm doing these reviews and it's forcing me to like read more things, because like with Napoleon Dynamite, I didn't know there was an animated series, which I have not checked out yet. I gotta check out at least one episode. But yeah, Nacho Libre has a DS game. It's always funny to me with the DS games where it'll be like the same poster, something as the movie, and it just has the Nintendo. There's just something about seeing that and then the Nintendo DS logo on the side. So you can play as one of 20 luchadors, including Nacho, and they have their own abilities and stuff, and there's mini games with the touchscreen. Apparently it got a mixed review. This is a game from 2006. Interesting. That's just funny to me, like the amount of games that are like movies that have tie-in games on the Nintendo DS. Something about that just feels really nostalgic to me. Or like the because I said I've had this on DVD forever, and I'm pretty much done talking about the movie at this point. I'm gonna like kind of go on a tangent here. There's previews, like preview trailers before this movie starts, which that's the thing I think I kind of miss with streaming now, is like you can pick a movie and you start the movie and that's it, compared to like when you'd have things on DVD and you have to, you could always fast forward them, and sometimes for me it was like an inconvenience of like, okay, I have to sit through all these previews, but then sometimes it's kind of fun, especially when it's like I'm watching a DVD I haven't seen in years from like the early 2000s or the 90s or whatever, and it's for movies that I've either never heard of or ones that I haven't seen in a really long time. It's like kind of weirdly nostalgic for me now, I think, because mostly everything I watch has just been on streaming, and it's also because our DVD player's downstairs and I barely ever get to use it. Anyway, the previews they had, and it was funny because my dad sounded interested in both movies and I know he's never seen them. The first trailer was for Flushed Away, and my dad kept laughing at stuff with it, and the second one was for Back in the Barnyard. I forgot about Back in the Barnyard until I saw that again, and my dad kept laughing really hard with that one. which was kind of nice. He was the one that always took me to like go see kids movies and stuff like that when I was younger, and just the fact that he still finds them funny now, just there's something about that makes me kind of smile. But back in the barnyard, I forgot it had a movie. I remembered as I was watching it a lot of the parts they were talking about in this or they were showing this trailer. I just mainly remember the show. I think it was a movie first though. I mostly just remember the part of that kid with the curly hair that tips the cows, and he says this is what we call cow tipping or whatever, and then the main, what is the name of the main cow? I don't remember. I remember one of them was named Otis, but I think that's a different cow. Shoot, I don't remember. I feel like I should remember the barnyard characters. And he tips the kid in the middle of the night, and he's like, this is called cow tipping or whatever, and they all laugh at him. And for some reason, that's the scene that's ingrained in my head the most. But yeah, I think I watched the show before the movie. Like, I grew up with the show, so I still kind of vaguely remember how the characters sound and stuff, but the movie I didn't really remember. But I feel like it was probably one of those where it was like the movie was made first and then it was popular and got turned into a show. I sort of remember the plot of the movie. I just don't remember if it takes place like before or after the TV series. Damn it. Now I kind of want to watch it again. I should mention about that to my friends. They totally watched that with me. Okay, anyway, yeah, the reason I think that trailer was there, this was a Nickelodeon movie, actually. I didn't remember about that. I do find it funny Wikipedia lists it specifically as a sports, not Back at the Barnyard, but Nacho Libre, as a sports comedy family film. That is quite the description, but I mean, it's technically correct. Yeah, I didn't even think of this as sports, but I mean, it's wrestling, so that's absolutely right. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. I mostly just wanted to talk about the jokes and stuff, but I also wanted to make the review because this was like another movie that was nostalgic for me that I kind of wanted the excuse to talk about. Oh wait, there's a joke I forgot about that was also funny to me. There's a part where Nacho, he ends up writing a letter to Encarnacion. It's, I think, when he's gonna go back to wrestling to do the fight with Ramses. Yeah, he has this letter, and as she's reading it, there's like the voiceover by Jack Black, which I love that in movies, actually, when like a character reads a letter. And it's not just in movies and whatever. A character reads a letter written by another character, and that other character, it's like a voiceover of them as if they're like in the room saying these things. I always just find that kind of interesting. But yeah, there's the Jack Black voiceover, and he basically confesses his love for her and saying like, yeah, if we didn't take our vows, we could get married and have a bunch of kids and stuff. And she's like, her reactions are interesting. She's like a very smiley character throughout this movie. But here it's like a mix of like happy, but also just kind of surprised, as she's reading it, and then she ends up tucking it under her pillow. But anyway, at the end of the letter, it has the hugs, kiss thing, but like the way Jack Black says it and like the order of the hugs and kiss, because it's not just like the XOXO and then his name. It's like his name was already written on the first page of the letter, and then the second page of the letter has the hugs, kiss, but it's just one really long line that's something along the lines of like hug, kiss, big hug, little kiss, big kiss, whatever, and it's like read really slowly, and just the way he says it was also really funny. And I guess I remembered about that because as soon as the letter scene started and the Jack Black voiceover started, I instantly just remembered that one part, but like nothing from when the actual letter was written. You know, there's just some parts or like certain jokes from movies for whatever reason just end up ingrained, where even if I haven't seen this movie in probably at least like a decade, and I still remembered very clearly some of the jokes and stuff, so I don't know. But yeah, that's about it. This movie's good. like I said, I was looking into other movies directed by Jared Hess. One of them I saw was what was it? Hold on. Gentlemen Broncos. Yeah, Gentlemen Broncos was actually the next movie after Nacho Libre. So I'm technically watching these in the right order. Anyway, I watched the trailer for that. It didn't really look as funny as like Napoleon Dynamite or Nacho Libre. But it's on Hulu, so I might give it a shot, but it's either probably going to be either that or the Wes Anderson movies next. I think I don't get to watch any more movies with my dad for like a couple games because he's got like sports to do. Oh, apparently, I didn't know this. Jared Hess, I was looking on not Wikipedia, Letterboxd. Guess what else he directed? The Minecraft movie. That was just, I think I was just surprised, but I also found that really funny. I don't know, that's just funny to me because it's the Minecraft movie, you know. But that just surprised me. But then I feel like that also made sense, and I mentioned that to my dad, and he was like, is that, and I was like laughing a little bit, and he was like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I didn't know how to respond to that. But I feel like for some reason that doesn't surprise me, but that's also kind of nice because it's like another movie with Jack Black. Yeah, but that's the latest one, and he's directing the director and writer for the untitled Minecraft movie sequel is what it's listed as for 2027. Gotta wait a whole year for Minecraft. Damn. But yeah, there's also Gentlemen Broncos. I'll probably watch that. What is Don Verdine? I've never heard of that. Maybe I'll check that out too. There's another one called Masterminds. I don't really know what. Something called Thelma the Unicorn. Is it animated? Yeah, that's animated. It's a Netflix movie. Huh. Okay, anyway, I haven't really heard of any of these other movies. It was only really Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. And that's just because I grew up with both of those on DVD. So I guess there's other things I'll watch too. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's my review of Nacho Libre. Pretty good movie. I actually was just talking about it with my friend too. Like, I wasn't even really planning to watch this or anything, but my friend was like, yeah, I've never seen Napoleon Dynamite, and I was like, you gotta watch it. They mentioned, oh hey, but I have seen Nacho Libre, so that at least redeems him in my eyes. Because we were talking, and I was entirely shocked he never played Super Mario Galaxy, and I was like, how could you? It's one of the greatest games of all time. And then he was like, don't get mad at me. This might be a big moment, big shock, like the Super Mario Galaxy thing. And he was like, but I've never seen Napoleon Dynamite. And I was like, that's okay, because I had assumed that movie was either like a cult classic or not really as heard of, because that one is like a lot more awkward than Nacho Libre, just like character wise and just kind of vibe wise and everything. But I also feel like not just because Jack Black is like the main star of this movie, but also just how this movie is. I just assumed it would be the one that's more well known. Like, apparently a bunch of my other friends had seen this. Like, I mentioned to another friend, I was like, hey, I'm watching Nacho Libre, and he was like, 10 out of 10 movie as his response. But yeah, this is good. You should watch it. I don't know what streaming service it's on, because I have this on DVD. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what other movies, or I don't know when I'll get to Gentlemen Broncos. I don't know if I'll watch any of the other movies by this director, but I really like his work. Just, it's like the cinematography, I think, does kind of almost remind me of like Wes Anderson a little bit, just a little bit. But I think it's just the humor, like whoever's doing the writing for these things, it's perfect. These are so funny. But yeah, actual Wes Anderson stuff I will watch as well. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. I think is one my dad really wanted to watch. So there might be a review of that. I don't know. I feel like that one's a weird one to talk about because it's all these like actors from the 60s, but most of them I don't recognize. And in terms of that genre of those types of movies, I actually really prefer Rat Race. And that's kind of the one I'm more like a bit more familiar with. But yeah, those might be some of the other reviews, and maybe Back in the Barnyard. I the thing is I'm watching a bunch of horror movies with my friends right now at the time I'm like recording this, so we kind of have the next 2 weeks pretty full on movies, so we'll see. All right, thanks for listening. Bye bye.